Good morning, Stampers. Happy Friday. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late here. Time got away from me. Welcome to this week's Celebration Focused Facebook Live, where we are creating with the Dandelion, I keep calling it Dandelion, Daffodil Afternoon DSP. This is a celebration product, so a product that you can choose for free with a qualifying order until the end of February. It is a 12 by 12 paper, so here's the patterns on one side. So you can see lots of bold kind of floral patterns. This one here is like a border strip. And then when we flip it over, there's some patterns that combine really well with the back sides. Like you can see, if you put this with lots of these, they'll work nicely. So they're great kind of coordinating patterns on the back side. All right, so we're going to play with that. Now, first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Sherry Roth. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Alberta, Canada, and I go live every Friday with a crafting project for you. And I always give away the projects if they're mailable. And last week, I created using the Calming Camellia stamp set. So I created these two cards for you guys. You can catch the replay on my YouTube channel or on my blog. You'll find a link there as well as photos and measurements if you want to recreate these cards. All right, and I always give away, like I said, the cards that I create, and the way that you can get entered into the draw is by commenting or participating in the conversation. So whether you are commenting live or on the replay here on Facebook, or when I upload it to YouTube, if you're commenting on YouTube. And actually somebody who commented on YouTube won one of these cards from last week. So the lucky winners are Cheryl Medico. She's the one who commented on YouTube, so I will see if I can get a hold of her. And Simone, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So, and she commented on Facebook. So Simone, if you're watching, then make sure to send me a private message with your mailing address so I can get that in the mail for you. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, I have got a ton to share. We're going to create two projects, but then I've got a ton of samples to share with you today. All right, so first of all, I want to point out that there is a bundle in the January to June mini catalog that coordinates with this fabulous DSP. Good morning, Mary Liz. Good morning, Kim. Good morning, Susan, or I guess good afternoon, Susan. Oh, thank you for sharing. So this Daffodil Daydream bundle, so stamp set and dies, coordinates with this beautiful DSP. And if you purchase the bundle, you can get the DSP for free. All right, but only until the end of February. And I do have my current class to go is focused on this Daffodil Daydream bundle. So I have linked in the description where you can find more information, and I'll share a peek of those projects, or a few of those projects, towards the end of this video. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Now, we are going to use this particular piece of paper. So what I did is, this is 12 by 12, and it comes like, this would be the 12 by 12 paper. Okay, so you have the border strip here and another border strip at the top. If you are a scrapbooker, these kinds of patterned papers are great for borders on scrapbook layouts. But I'm going to show you one way that you can use them on a card. There's several different ways that you can use them, but I'm going to show you kind of a fun way today. All right, so I've got, like I said, this is 6 by 12, and we are going to trim it down a little bit. We're going to trim it down to 5.5 inches. So, and I'm going to cut off this side, because then I'm just cutting off just that vanilla top, and I'm not cutting into the pattern. But you don't want to get rid of this, because you can either stamp on that piece, or you can flip it over and use the back side. All right, and then I'm going to rotate it, and I'm going to cut it at 8.5 inches. So this is actually going to be our card base. And I very rarely use patterned paper as a card base, but I've got a fun way to show you how you can do that today. This piece, you'll want to save that, because that would be great on another project. Okay, and then I'm going to slide it over, and I'm going to score at 4 1/4. And I'm going to be careful when I score. I don't want to push too hard because this is DSP. It's not as heavy as cardstock. Okay, so now we can move this out of the way. And we'll bring in our bone folder and just fold that so it's nice and crisp. So this is what our card base is going to look like. Okay, so now the other pieces that I have here is I've got a 4 by 5¼ inch piece that is going to go in the inside, and we can actually attach that right now. We'll just go ahead and do that. This gives a little bit of weight to the card because this is a DSP card base. It is a little bit more flimsy than a cardstock card base, but I love the diagonal stripes. I love a diagonal stripe border like this. I think it looks so pretty. Okay, and then we need to spruce up the outside. So I've got 2 scraps here. I've got a scrap of vanilla and a scrap of mossy meadow. We're going to use both of those. And first we're going to bring in this 2¼ inch circle punch. Now, if you don't have circle punches, because we don't carry circle punches anymore, we do have layering circles dies. So just choose the die that is similar in size. And when you run it through your Stampin' Cut and Emboss, you just want to make sure that it's open. Your card base is open, because if it's closed and you run it through, it's going to cut through both layers, and you don't want that. So we're just going to create a little window kind of in the lower right corner, and I'm going to line up the edge of the DSP with the edge of my punch and then go up a little ways. And just punch that out. This, you can save it for another project. All right, so that was the 2¼ inch, I think I said 2¼ inch circle punch. Okay, so now we've got this little window peeking through. Now I'm going to take my scrap piece of vanilla, and I am going to use a different greeting set today. Now, if I pull in the Daffodil Daydream stamp set, there are 2 greetings in here. There is Happy Mother's Day and Easter Blessings. It's a little bit early for Mother's Day and Easter Blessings. I do have some samples to show you using those 2 greetings, but I think I've got enough Mother's Day cards and Easter cards now that I don't need to make any more. So I've decided to pull in another one of my favorite celebration products, the Special Moments stamp set. And I've chosen this greeting, Where Would I Be Without a Friend Like You, to use on this particular card. So I've got that mounted on a block, and I'm going to use my Memento ink. Just ink that up, and I'm going to stamp it onto some vanilla cardstock and then punch it out using a 2-inch circle punch. So slightly smaller. This is a 1/4 inch smaller than the one that I created my window with. I'm going to punch that out, and then I can set this aside. Okay, and then I'm going to take my scrap piece of Mossy Meadow, and I'm just grabbing a scrap piece of paper here. I'm going to ink the greeting up again, and I'm going to stamp it on there. I'm really only concerned about the word friend. And I'm going to cut out the word friend. And this is an easy thing to cut out because we're not going to fussy cut around. Well, I guess theoretically we are fussy cutting. We're just using scissors and cutting straight lines. So we're not kind of following the shape. Although it's block letters, so I guess we really are following the shape of it. But it's an easy one to cut. Okay, and I can see just a little bit of the words underneath, so I'm going to trim a little bit off this side here. There we go. And then I'm going to flag both ends, and when I flag, I like to cut up the center and then go from either side up to that cut line, and that gives me a relatively even flag. I'm going to do that on both sides. So this is a really quick card to create. Okay, we can all these bits out of the way. Okay, so now I'm going to use my multi-purpose glue, add a little bit to the back here, and I'm going to pop this right on top of the word friend, and that just gives that friend a little bit more weight. Okay, and then we'll flip this over, and I have dimensionals here. Here we go. We're going to add some dimensionals to this. Flip it over. We're going to close our card, and we're going to pop this up right in the center so we have a nice even border all the way around. There we go. So then it opens up. So it's got a little window peeking with the greeting peeking through. And then the last thing that we want to do is we want to add a little bit of embellishing. So I am going to use these brushed brass butterflies. I love these butterflies. If you do not have these yet, these are something you definitely want to add to your wish list. They are so cute. There's 2 different sizes. They're shimmery, so they got that shine to it because it is like a brushed brass. And they are super flat, so they don't add bulk to your cards, which is really nice. So you don't have to worry. You can add as many as you want, and you don't have to worry about extra postage. So I'm going to take one of these big ones and pop it on right here. Actually, we're going to do 2 big ones and a little one. We'll put, actually, let's put this one over here, and then we'll grab a little one and pop it up right there. And there we go. We've got a super simple card where we've used DSP as our card base. And there are a lot of patterns in this Daffodil Afternoon paper pack that you could actually do this same kind of technique with. Really, really simple. Okay. All right. So that is card number 1. Now we're going to get a little bit more elaborate with the second card, and we're going to do a little bit of a fun fold. It's a simple fun fold, one that I turn to quite often, and you've probably seen me do it before because, like I said, it is something that I like to do quite often. Okay, so I've got my pieces here. Let me go through the measurements first. Okay, so I've got a piece of Very Vanilla cardstock because and we're using Very Vanilla because Very Vanilla is the neutral that is in this paper pack. It measures 5.5 by 8.5, but I have not scored it yet. We're going to score it in 2 different places on here. So we'll come back to that in a minute. And then I've got 3 pieces of the DSP. I've got 2 pieces that measure 2 inches by 5 3/8. And you can see that it is directional, so they go this way. So they're vertical or portrait. And then I've got 1 piece that's 2 1/4 by 6 inches. And this piece I'm going to use for the envelope flap. Okay. All right. And then I've gone ahead and I've die cut this label shape from the Tasteful Labels die. So I used this one here, which I love this label set because there's so much detail on here. There's some stitching on several of them, but on the ones that don't have stitching, they've got, I don't know how well this is going to show up, but it's got like an embossed detail around the edges. I don't think that's showing up on the camera, but just trust me, it's there. Okay, which kind of makes it a little bit fancier than just a regular die cut. Okay, and then I've got a scrap piece of vanilla for some stamping, and I've got a 2 7/8. I think it's 2 or is it 2 3/4? No, it's 2 3/4 by 3 3/4 inch piece of vellum, and a 1 by 11 inch piece of Mossy Meadow. Okay, so those are the pieces that we're working with. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to score our card base. So I'm going to bring in my paper trimmer, and I'm going to line up long edge at the top. I'm going to line it up with 2 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to score. The light little thingy here is the scoring tool. So I'll just score, and then I'm going to rotate it around, line it up with 2 1/8, and score again. Okay, so for those of you who haven't figured it out yet, we're doing a gatefold card with a belly band. Okay, so now I'll take my bone folder and I'm going to fold these in. Make sure that they're nice and crisp, and they should line up perfectly in the middle. So this is the gatefold, so it opens like that. Okay, you can do it landscape as well and have it open like this, but we're going to do it portrait. All right, first thing we're going to do, or the next thing that we're going to do, is we're going to take these two vertical pieces and add them to our flaps. And look at that pattern on the back. I love this petal pink pattern, or pale papaya pattern, sorry, not petal pink. Okay, we're just going to open this up and we're going to position this on here. So these measurements will give you just a 1/16 of an inch border all the way around. So remember, this is 2 inches by 5 3/8. And you can always go to my blog a little bit after these videos post, and I have all the measurements and photos of the projects there. So if you want to recreate them, you can use that as a reference. Okay, and then we'll put this one on this side. Okay, and there's the beginnings of our card base. Next up, we are going to take our belly band. Let's put the lid on this. And I'm going to position this on here. And I'm going to use my bone folder. Let's slide this down a little bit. So I'm using the grid marks on my mat here as a guide. Oops. Make sure this is straight. So I'm just going to score this. Oh my gosh, it keeps moving. And then fold in. Let's reline it up here. And then I will make sure this is straight, score it here, and fold it in. And this is a little bit long, so I'm going to trim a little bit off. I'll trim a little bit on this side. I do want there to be some overlap. So I'm going to trim a little bit off this side and maybe a little bit off this side as well, just to make it a little bit shorter. Okay, so it'll look like that. And we want to stick it together. And because this is going to be an interactive kind of element on this project, you want to use a strong adhesive. So I'm going to use my Seal Plus for this and just add a narrow strip here. Rotate this here so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, a little bit there and then a little bit on this side, because that will give me the adhesive on the end of this piece and on the end of this piece, so that when I fold it over, I've got 2 strips of adhesive. The other thing I want to do is I don't want it to be too tight. You don't want it to be super flat, because you want there to be movement so that this will slide nicely. Okay? So, and I'm not worried about that being right in the center, because that's going to get covered over anyways. All right. Next up, we're going to take this vellum and we're going to add this on top. And again, I'm just going to use some of this seal adhesive, and I'm going to, let's make sure that this is kind of in the center. Okay, I think that looks good. Position this on here like that. And don't worry, that's going to get covered over. Okay, now we can set this aside as we work on our focal point. Okay, so I've got these 2 pieces, and we're going to take from the Daffodil Daydream stamp set, we're going to use this particular image right here, and we're going to stamp it twice. Bring back my scrap paper here. We're going to use Memento because I want to color it in using Stampin' Blends. Ink this up and stamp it on here. Now this is just a touch longer than this label shape, so I want to make sure that the whole flower makes it on here, but I'm okay with the base or the bottom of the stem of the flower being cut off a little bit. Just put that on there. Okay, so we've got that. And then I'm going to stamp it again on this scrap piece of vanilla. And really all I'm concerned about is getting the flower part on here. The rest doesn't matter. All right, now we can set this aside. We are still going to need our scrap paper. Okay, so now we are going to color in. We're going to do several things to this particular piece of paper. First, we're going to color in using the blends. Now, I want to mimic kind of the look of the flowers on this particular patterned paper. So I've brought in my light Calypso Coral to go around the edges here, or you could do, actually, you know what? I think it's Flirty Flamingo that's in this DSP. Let me just check. Do I have, yeah, I have my package here. I love that Stampin' Up! Puts the colors on the back of your package. It is Flirty Flamingo. So you can use Calypso Coral if you want. On the sample that I'll share you with you afterwards, uses Calypso Coral, or uses yeah, Calypso Coral. Do we have Flirty Flamingo dye or blends? We do. Okay, so I'm going to take my light Flirty Flamingo. Let's see what the difference is. Actually, I want to try this first. I think it'll be okay. Let's check the dark Flirty Flamingo. We're doing this on the fly here. That's quite a bit darker. I don't think I want to use this one. Okay, we'll try this one, although it does look really light. You know what, I'm going to stick with my first thought, and that is using the Calypso Coral. So I've got light Calypso Coral here, and I'm going to color just the flower on this particular one. And again, I'm trying to mimic this so you can see that the kind of pinky color goes around the edges. So I'm just tracing around the edges of this flower with the bullet tip of the light Calypso Coral Stampin' Blend. And that will mimic that. Got something sticky over here. Okay, and then I'm going to take Pale Papaya, and I'm going to add, this is dark Pale Papaya, just along these lines here and just underneath here. Okay, so let me bring that closer so you can see. So just a little bit of dark. There isn't a huge difference between the dark and the light Pale Papaya. Now I'm going to go over everything with the light. And I'm also going to add just a hint where these lines are on my stamped image. Now I know that they don't have that on the pattern paper, but I just felt like the flower needed a little bit more color. So I decided to add a little bit more of that Pale Papaya color. Okay, so now we can set that aside. And we're gonna bring in our label shape, and we're gonna color in the leaves. So I'm going to take my dark, I'm using Old Olive. You could also use Mossy Meadow. And I'm just adding a little bit of dark kind of underneath where the flowers sit, where I think there would be kind of shadows. And then just a little bit at the base. So has anybody played with this DSP yet? The Daffodil Afternoon DSP? I admit that when I saw it in the catalog, I thought, oh, that is a bit florally. It's a bit much for me. It's not really my usual style, but once I started playing with it, it's actually really nice. It's kind of fun to play with something that's not your usual style and just see how it stretches your creativity. Okay, so I'm just filling in the rest of these leaves with the light Old Olive. don't want it to bleed too much. I do find that using your Stampin' Blends on the vanilla does tend to bleed a little bit more than on white. You can already see that it's starting to blend, so I don't want to add, or bleed. I don't want to add too much. Okay, and then this flower we're going to fussy cut. So I've got one here that's fussy cut, and you can see I colored it in exactly the same way. It does lighten as it dries. Okay, so we'll set that aside. Now before we add this to this, we're going to do something to the background. So we're going to create a nice subtle background in behind here. And I'm going to use the greeting that says thanks from the Special Moment stamp set. So this is another celebration set that you can choose for free with a qualifying order. And that is a level 2, so it is with a $120 order. Now I've got a mask in here. And what I did to create this is I stamped that daffodil greeting, or that daffodil image, on a post-it note, and then I die cut it using the coordinating die. And that will allow me to position this over top, just like this, so I can create a subtle background without stamping over top of the image that we just colored in. Okay, now I'm going to bring in some pale papaya ink. And I'm going to take my thanks greeting, and I want this to be really subtle. So I'm going to stamp off. Like, pale papaya is a light color to begin with. Okay, so I'm going to stamp off and then stamp on. Stamp off and stamp on. And I'm just going to create this subtle background. I'm not worried. I mean, I do want it to be straight, but I'm not worried about lining it up or making sure that all the lines are, like, all the words are in order, but I do want them to be staggered. I'm just going to repeat this over and over and over until the entire background is covered. Trying to make sure I don't stamp off on my label shape. I'll bring this up a little closer so that you guys can see what it looks like after it's all done. Oh, I stamped off twice there. There we go. Okay, let's move this out of the way. You can get this out of the way. Okay, so can you see that subtle background on there? Let me just let my camera catch up and see if you can see. Oh, it's really hard to see. It is very, very light. And then when we peel this off, you can see that we've got this subtle background that is not stamped over top. Okay, so now this piece, we're going to take and we're going to give it a little bit of dimension by just kind of curling up those petals. And then we'll pop a dimensional on the back. Add that on there, and then we can bring in our card base, and again I'm going to use this Seal Plus adhesive. Just add some more adhesive over top of that. This is going to sit right in here, right in the center, and then we need to dress this up a little bit. So of course you didn't think I would make a card without baker's twine today, did you? All right, so I've got some vanilla baker's twine. I'm just going to tie a bow. Oh, we're still twisting. So I do find that because this comes on a roll, sometimes when you go to tie a bow with it, it twists. So I find by taking your hands and kind of running it over that, it straightens it out a little bit. You do still get a little bit of twisting. Okay, trim these a little bit. And then I'm going to use a little dot of multi-purpose glue right here, the base of the flower. And we'll add that bow on there. And then we're going to bring in some iridescent rhinestone basic jewels for a little bit of bling. I'm going to use one, there's 3 different sizes in here, so I'm going to use one of each size. And add those on there. And then the last thing that we need to do is just do our envelope flap. I love doing this with my envelope flaps if I have lots of the DSP. So I'm just going to add a little bit of multi-purpose glue. On here. And a 2 1/4 by 6 inch strip. Actually, you can use a little bit less than 6 inches, but works perfectly. Just line it up with the top. And then you can just trim around the edges. And there's very little waste. And this just gives a nice peek at what's inside the envelope. All right, so like I said, while I finish this, this month's Class to Go focuses on this Daffodil Daydream bundle and the DSP. The cards are so fun. Love them. You can find a link to all of the information in the description. There's our first card, and here's our second card. Or there's our second card and our first card. So there's the 2 cards that we created today. Remember, you can get a chance to win one of these by commenting in the conversation. So comment in the post, just share something. If you've got this DSP, I'd love to see what you've created with it. That would be fun. And your name will get entered in to win one of these projects. And you can also share the video as well. That will give you the opportunity. Okay, so let's start with a little peek at the projects in this month's Class to Go, and then I'll share some additional projects created using these supplies. Okay, so Class to Go. The deadline to register is February 18th, and what is included is $45. You get a 1/4 package of the DSP, so 6 by 12 inch 6 sheets. You get a full package of the iridescent rhinestone basic jewels, a full package of the brushed brass butterflies, and 2 yards of this very vanilla lace trim. Okay, in addition to all 6 pre-cut card kits to make the 6 cards that we'll be making in class, and an emailed PDF which includes the full supply list, measurements, photos, and links to the 6 videos that will walk you through creating the projects. Okay, the $45 plus $5 shipping anywhere in Canada. If you don't yet have this Daffodil Daydream bundle, you can choose the I Want It All option, and as long as you place a minimum order of $99.25, which would be the Daffodil Daydream bundle, a package of the brushed brass butterflies, and a package of the iridescent rhinestones, then I will send you the six pre-cut card kits and a spool of this vintage lace trim for free as a thank you. You do need to use the class host code. Again, you can find all the information in the link below. And then if you are not in Canada, obviously I can't sell you products or projects, even kits, if you're not in Canada, but there is a tutorial option. So that you'll find linked in the blog post as well. And then, of course, if you are a member of my Treasure Stampers team, you get the tutorial for free. All you need to do is request it. And if you would like the pre-cut card kits, then it's $15. That's just a perk that I offer my team. All right, so let's have a look at the cards. Well, these are 5 of the 6 cards that we'll be creating. So I'm gonna do a quick flip through. I love this one. We've got that one, and that one. So great way to really highlight that DSP, super fun projects, and a video, step-by-step video for each one of them. Now, are you ready to see some additional samples? Now, some of these you may have seen. Some of them I have shared on social media already. So here is a scrapbook layout created using this bundle. So the DSP, I used a 12 by 12 piece of the DSP in the back, little piece here, and then I used the dies. So those daffodil, everything is, my desk is just a mess right now. It's always like this at the tail end of a Facebook Live. The daffodil dies to create my little daffodils. I used the grass and the stems, and then I combined it with a die from the annual catalog, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but I love the grass image that's in that. So I created a little flower garden to go in it. Super cute. So there's the first sample of what you can do. Here are 2. Actually, I've got 3. The next 3 are using mostly the bundle, not the DSP. So this one features kind of a masking technique. This was one of the cards that we created at our team meeting this month. Here's another one that we created at our team meeting. Again, another masking technique. This was another one that we created at our team meeting. So, and I'm doing a version of this one in next month's treasure chest. So you'll see how to do this technique over in my membership group. Here is another sample with the DSP. So I used a different pattern DSP. I cut this image from the DSP, and then just, again, I used the Special Moments stamp set, added a greeting on there with a little bit of ribbon, fun little card, and then the inside, added another little daffodil and a strip of that DSP. This is a card that I received in a swap. I believe it was created, by downline, one of my downline, Tracy Frith. So this opens up like this, like that. So you can see that this is another way that you can use that patterned paper. Here is another one that I created using a variety of sized circles, gold embossing, gold faceted gems, just to create a nice background. And then you can put all of those cards in this sweet little box. We've got, one of our gems is falling off here. All right, so this is one of the craft gift boxes, and I just created a tag using strips of the patterned paper, or the cardstock that matches the patterned paper. Not that I used a lot of the patterned paper in here. Wrapped some ribbon around, created a little tag, die cut the dandelion just from vanilla cardstock, so did it all in one color rather than in a variety of colors, and then embossed the greeting on some craft cardstock and just added that. And then a few of these cards would fit inside. You could probably fit about 4 cards and envelopes, maybe 5. If there's not a ton of dimension, you could fit those in the box. All right, so tons and tons of inspiration for you featuring the Daffodil Afternoon DSP. I will post a full supply list of what I used to create the 2 cards in the description after this video goes live. So thanks so much for watching. Have a great weekend. I hope you have a chance to get creative, and I'll see you next week. All right, take care. Bye, guys.